This is the IDP After Show.
Who is the first of your linebackers who you think has a shot to bounce back in 2023 and why?
Oh, so much pressure going first. Let's start with Denzel Perryman, the newest member of the Houston Texans. So we know he's maybe not the most talented linebacker out there in terms of a straight skill set. But that doesn't matter in fantasy. As long as you're racking up tackles and making plays on the field, that's how you score points. He had a bit of a disappointing follow-up to his career year in 2021, where he had 154 combined tackles. Last year, he only had 83. He did miss some time due to some injuries, and he finds himself on a Texans team, which I don't know if anyone feels super confident with what the Texans are doing, maybe other than, as their future quarterback, right, in Stroud. But on defense, we know Christian Kirksey and Christian Harris played pretty well down the stretch last year, but with the new defensive coordinator there, it's hard to really have any confidence with who's going to be actually playing and performing. So Perriman has had success in the past. He's a plug and play guy who brings a veteran presence there on that defense. So I kind of like him to return, maybe not back to how many tackles did he have in this breakout? Not to the 154 combined tackles year. But do I see him breaking like 120 tackles again and being a decent LB3 for you? I think he can be.
Yeah, you've pretty much nailed it there. So I I try not to let my personal feelings, cloud my judgment about a player as a fantasy asset. As you can see, I'm a Chargers fan. We invested like a second round pick in Perriman and like watched him falter for 6 seasons. So I kind of gave up all hope in seeing him, become the player I hoped it would be. So imagine my frustration the season he leaves us. He becomes a tackling machine for the Raiders, right? So, as you said, right. I don't think he's a special player. He's not particularly gifted, but I do like his situation. I'm not a big believer in Christian Harris or Christian Kirksey for that matter. I think he can, fill a role, but nothing special. So I can see Perriman carving out a role there and bouncing back to produce, at a decent level in IDP. As you said, maybe not seeing those sort of heady heights we saw in 2021. But yeah, even if he came remotely close to that, he could be a big factor in fantasy. So for him, he's another guy. It comes back to health, really. And there's a few guys on my list for whom that applies. He always seems to miss a lot of time because of injuries. Not a lot, but enough that it matters. And not wanting to make light of his misfortune, but I was looking at one of those sites, the ones that have a graphic of a player's body and it shows you where on their body they've had injuries. I was looking at Perriman and it's entirely down his right hand side, almost exclusively. So yeah, I've got some hopes for him. They're not high hopes, but I think he's a good call. Maybe he's just got to lead with the left shoulder and the left arm. He's kind of strong enough to be able to get away with doing that. So
yeah. And I'll say people aren't going to end up on this episode of this lovely show if there weren't question marks somewhere, right? They disappointed us like for a reason, right? So it's trying to find those people that can bounce back. And I love targeting players on defenses where their offenses are bad. Just they have more opportunities to make plays. And sure, the Texans are in theory ascending. That offense is ascending. I don't think it's going to be quite there yet, especially with a rookie QB at the helm, right? So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to rack up, tackles or just being around the ball. And I think Perriman is someone that people have kind of forgotten about because last year was kind of terrible. But like you said, or like I said, yeah, I think he has a real chance to be decent this year.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So my first guy is Devondre Campbell. It kind of feels like the the IDP community is just willing Campbell to just give way to Walker, and I can kind of understand why. Walker's he's that new shiny toy we all want to play with, and he's kind of proven that he belongs already. So, but I'd argue that Campbell's he's going nowhere. He had a larger snap share than Walker in every game he was healthy last year, including the 5 games once he returned from injury from week 13 onwards. And in fact, he played every down in every game except 2. And in one of those 2 games was the one that he left with an injury. So, I think he's got a lot going for him. Oh, and he's also under contract for several years, and his dead cap exceeds his cap savings until something like 2026, 2027, as things currently stand. Obviously, things can change. So, we all know his stats dropped off last year, which has kind of hurt the perception of him a little bit. But he finished with, only 98 combined tackles, no sacks, no forced fumbles. But that's, largely because he missed a bit of time, played almost 300 snaps fewer than he did the year before. He's another guy on my list who I know will have a sizable role next season. He's got Joe Barry returning as the DC. And even if Walker does surpass Campbell in snap share and becomes the every down linebacker there, we know that Barry has that sort of proven tendency to involve two linebackers quite extensively, actually. So I think there's a lot to like about Campbell this year, especially with an ADP of 29, LB 29 in the IDP show Best Ball Drafts. That means we're drafting him to be like a mid-tier LB3. I'm buying that value all day long. Are you a Campbell fan, Matt?
Oh, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. So I'm actually living in Wisconsin, so I am very attuned to what the Packers are doing. And I think you nailed it. Unsurprisingly, people have kind of forgotten about him. Mostly because we love to live in that dynasty space where you're trying to find that new shiny toy that's going to be great. And as you mentioned, this is no slight on what I think Quay Walker can be and will be this year as well, because he's an absolute, missile when he's out there and he plays really well. But it doesn't take you don't have to go too far in the past to see when Campbell was a top 15 guy, if not higher, right? And people are kind of shoving him away. They're like, please go away, so don't hurt Quay Walker. But and this is another offense with the Packers that I don't think is going to necessarily be super great with Jordan Love at quarterback. There'll be plenty of opportunities. Campbell has been just a stalwart on that defense forever. Like you said, he's not going anywhere. They gave him a lot of money. He's going to get, 85, 90% of the snaps, right? So yeah, especially, did you say 29, 28? That's
LB 29. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
bonafide nuts. Like that's nuts. I would absolutely smash that at that value and run.
This was the IDP After Show.